been pretty fascinated by the reaction online over the last, I think, with the Ukraine, with the Middle East, with sort of a broader conversation about the Jewish community at large, generally. I wonder how much Elon's opening up of X has contributed to outgroup tribalism, now that maybe some of the guardrails have been taken off with regards to that. But yeah, it feels to me like the world has reached some new fever pitch of sort of outgroup passion against whoever they see as a scapegoat, whoever they see as being in the wrong. And nobody can agree on who is in the wrong, which is one of the most sort of interesting observations, that everybody acts as if the facts are already settled, whilst never being able to actually agree on what the facts are. So I say they're settled, you say they're settled. We don't agree, but both of us act as if they are. And just the reaction, especially in the West, to a rapidly developing kinetic situation on the other side of the planet. And
well, I mean, I think I've said to you before, I mean, one of the things that I noticed in the internet age was that we'd gone from the era of we disagree about our opinions or our interpretations of an event, and then the internet age has given us the great things if we disagree about what just happened. And that does throw up its own manias. So one of the reasons I try to see things with my own eyes is because I'm always pretty confident that someone's going to try to tell me I haven't seen something I've seen with my own eyes. And sure enough, that happens all the time, but you have the reassurance if you know.
How's that?
You know. And but I do find that interesting. There are, for instance, I mean, there are people who would like to regard themselves as civilized people, I'm sure, who just will not accept that what happened on October the 7th happened, which was one of the reasons why I went there straight away, was because I knew that would happen.
When did you get there?
I got there in October of 2023. I went because I was in Times Square the day after the massacre, as it was still going on. And there was an anti-Israel, pro-Hamas protest happening in the center of Times Square with people supporting the massacre. And I thought, well, this is one of the things that's going to happen is they're going to pass over the massacre. They're going to celebrate it and pass it over. They're going to pretend it didn't happen or try to diminish it or minimize it. And I just didn't want to see that happen. Is what many people said, but it was like watching Holocaust denial in real time. And yes, I mean, and in the other main conflict going on at the moment in Russia, Ukraine, you know, I mean, at the highest level of the American government, there have been people who've implied that, you know, Ukraine started the war or is the aggressor. And that's disturbing to see, because there are some things that just have to be agreed upon. You know, it was Russian tanks that rolled into Ukraine in February 2022. It was Hamas terrorists who invaded by the thousands into Israel on October the 7th, 2023. Like, let's at least agree to that. As what you describe as the sort of the online thing is definitely massively worsened, and I think it's because, I mean, the sort of all the sluices are up, all of the guardrails, all of that, and that's good in lots of ways. I mean, look at what happened when our societies tried to say there's only one explanation for instance, you know, the COVID virus coming out of the area where that virus was being made, and that it was to do with Chinese people eating bats and from a wet market, and not to do with the lab that was making that virus happening to be leaky. We were told consistently that the lab leak was a conspiracy. And one of the reasons why that's so poisonous to the discourse as a whole is because it understandably makes people say, if I've been lied to about that, what are the other things that are true? what are the other conspiracy theories that are not conspiracy theories?
It becomes a gateway drug.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are on that. And then, of course, it's a great habit and it's a kind of enjoyable. And people believe everything's being kept from them. And doubtless some stuff is being kept from us, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes not. But I think that the conspiratorial mindset is flourishing at the moment. And it's funny because you can well, it's funny, but it's also more importantly, it's serious because it's a sign of a very unhealthy thing in society. When the JFK files were released the other week, there was a lot of excitement that, finally we're going to discover exactly what happened. And I wrote a column a while afterwards saying, the thing we've learned from the JFK files is that the president was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald with the gun that Lee Harvey Oswald owned, that Mrs. Lee Harvey Oswald noticed was missing from the house that morning. And it was funny because I noticed that, to the extent that I monitor reactions to anything I say, I noticed how many people were annoyed. No, there's still this question, he wasn't as good a sharpshooter as he was. You can't stop it. It looks, by the way, on that one, it's quite interesting. It looks like what happened was the CIA were monitoring him pretty carefully, Lee Harvey Oswald, because he tried to defect to Russia once before, and he tried to defect to Cuba, and so the CIA were monitoring him, and they didn't want to reveal the methods by which they did that. In the process, one of the biggest conspiracy theories of the modern era was born. But I don't think I'll persuade anyone who thinks otherwise on that, who's deeply into the idea that LBJ desperately wanted to do this or X wanted to do that. And the problem is what you allude to, is that the problem is that the algorithm rewards the crazy. I noticed on the day that the JFK files were released, some wank rag online started a live stream that was suggested to me, and its title was JFK Files Reveal Israeli plot or something. And there was no such thing, but that gets engagement. Whereas JFK scholars reading documents live, it'll take about 4 months.
Less sexy.
Less engagement. You're not going to watch them reading the documents. And, that's just the reality of the era we're in. And you can't stop it, but I think people should be alive to it, should be aware of it. This is one of the things that's being done to us.